Okay, welcome back. So right now we're going to be looking at fair and biased events. So right now we have a fair 20-sided die is rolled 500 times. A fair dice or a fair coin or a fair anything means that every single outcome has an even chance of occurring. So if I were to flip a fair coin, it would have a 50% chance of being heads and a 50% chance of being tails. If it was not fair, then those percentages would be different. So we have a fair 20-sided dice is rolled 500 times. So our first question is, what is the probability of rolling a 20? Okay, what's the probability of rolling a 20? On a 20-sided dice, we have 20 possible outcomes. So we know that it's going to be out of 20, but how many favorable outcomes do we have? On a 20-sided dice, 20 only occurs one time. So we have one favorable outcome out of our total outcomes is our probability. Okay, so that's our probability of getting a 20. For B, how many times would I expect to roll a 20 in 500 rolls? So we can simply do the fraction or the probability that we originally had, and then find the equivalent fraction if our number of trials was 500. So to go from 20 to 500, I've multiplied it by 25. So I have to do the same to the top. So I'd only expect to get it 25 times. So if you're playing a board game and you are needing to get a 20 in order to get something beneficial to happen, your chances are quite small. Alright, let's look at the next one. So for C, we have, what is the probability of rolling less than 5? Okay, first things first. We have a total number of outcomes on a 20-sided die is still going to be 20. Now, how many favorable outcomes do we have? So how many favorable results are going to be less than 5? Well, there's only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's actually only 4 possible favorable outcomes out of 20. So the probability is just going to be 4 out of 20, and we can reduce that down if we would like to. If we divide both by 2, it becomes 2 out of 10, and then we can still simplify that further till it becomes 1 out of 5. Alright, for D, how many times would you expect to roll a number less than 5 in 500 rolls? So we can take this 4 out of 20, or indeed even the 1 out of 5, and we can go from there. Let's start actually with the 1 out of 5. So 1 out of 5 is equal to something out of 500. Right, to go from here to here, I've times it by 100, which means I have to do the same thing to the top. And what I've got is that I would expect it to occur 100 times. So, out of 500 potential rolls, I would expect 100 of those to be actually less than 5. Okay, here's one for you guys to practice. We have a bias coin. Bias means one event is more likely than the other. It has a 60% chance of being heads and a 40% chance of being tails, and it is flipped 500 times. Alright, let's get started. So, for A, we have, what is the probability of getting heads? Alright, well, remember that 60% is the same as 60 out of 100, right? And we can simplify that down to 6 out of 10, and that can be simplified further to 3 out of 5. Now, that's our probability of this occurring. Now, if we look at B, how many times would we expect to get heads in 500 flips? So, if we looked at our simplest fraction, we have 3 out of 5 is equal to something out of 500. To go from here to here, I multiplied by 100. Now all I have to do is do the exact same to the top. And I get 300. So I would expect this to occur 300 times. Alright, let's look at C. So what is the probability of getting tails? So we know that the probability of tails is going to be equal to 40%, which is the same as 40 out of 100. Which again can be simplified to 4 out of 10 or 2 out of 5. Now, how many times do we expect to get tails in 500 flips? So if we do 2 out of 5 and we find the equivalent fraction out of 500, this will tell us how many times we would expect to get tails. To go from here to here, we multiply it by 100, which means you have to do the same to the top. So we'd expect this to occur 200 times. Alright, that's it for this video, so hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.